The phone rang at 2:17 in the morning. I've always dreaded calls in the middle of the night. They usually mean something terrible. If you're listening, make sure to follow along and tell me where you're from. With a shaking hand, I picked it up. Mrs. Walker, this is St. Mary's Hospital. Your son, Daniel, has been admitted with a suspected brain aneurysm. Please come immediately. The world spun. I was 65, already widowed for 10 years, but nothing prepared me for this. My brilliant, kind only child couldn't just be gone. I rushed to the hospital, coat thrown over my nightgown, hair a mess, hands trembling. A doctor with a grave expression led me to a small room. His words shattered me. Massive aneurysm, no warning, nothing could be done. Daniel was already gone. Hours passed in a blur of paperwork and impossible choices. Around noon, his wife Emily finally arrived, sunglasses hiding her eyes, nails clicking on her phone. She blamed traffic, mentioned needing someone to watch their son, Ethan. I had already called the school and arranged care. That she hadn't even thought of it felt sadly typical. When I told her Daniel was gone, she gasped, hand to her throat, but I'd known her long enough to recognize the performance. Later, she made hushed calls, stepping away whenever funeral arrangements came up. When decisions were needed, she casually deferred to me. You know what he'd want better than I do. By evening, Daniel's closest friend, Michael Grant, arrived. His grief was real, his embrace tight. He reminded us of Daniel's will and said we'd need to meet soon. Emily straightened quickly, dabbing at dry eyes. Of course. Tomorrow, for Ethan's sake. Her mention of my grandson cut through the fog. Sweet Ethan had lost his father, and already Emily seemed focused on control. When I offered to go with her to tell Ethan, she refused sharply. I can handle my own son. She softened then, adding, he adores you though. He'll need his grandmother now. Her tone was too polished. After decades teaching psychology, I knew exactly what she was doing, positioning herself, setting boundaries, calculating her next move. As we left, I caught her reflection in a window. No grief, no shock, just cold assessment, like a chess player planning the next move. My heart broke all over again. I'd lost my son, and my grandson was left in the care of a woman who saw tragedy as inconvenience, maybe even opportunity. What I didn't know yet was that Daniel had prepared for this, taking steps to protect both me and his boy. At his funeral, I sat in the front pew, watching Emily perform her role flawlessly. Designer dress, perfect hair, tearless eyes dabbing at a handkerchief. To others, we looked like a grieving mother and widow side by side. Only I noticed how lightly she leaned on me, how her eyes scanned the room, sizing up mourners. Meanwhile, Ethan's grief was real, his little shoulders shaking as he whispered, "Is Daddy really in there?" I held him close and told him his father's spirit would always stay with him. Emily leaned over, scolding him to sit up straight because people were watching. That was Emily, appearances first. Mourners shared stories of Daniel's kindness, his humor, the way he'd helped them through their hardest times. I held their hands, grateful, even as my heart felt like it might never heal. At the funeral reception, people kept telling me stories about Daniel. He'd cut fees for clients in trouble, connected them with help, taken cases no one else would. He truly cared about justice, not just money. Their words hurt and comforted me at the same time. My son had lived his values. I saved each memory, knowing Ethan would want them someday. Meanwhile, Emily was having hushed conversations, especially with a tall man in an expensive suit. She introduced him as David Price, one of Daniel's business partners. His handshake was cold, his tone insincere. The way Emily touched his arm made me uneasy. I stored the observation away. By evening, Ethan had fallen asleep on a couch, worn out from grief. I covered him with his little jacket, and that's when Michael, Daniel's attorney and old friend, pulled me aside. His voice was low. Daniel left instructions. He wanted me to tell you right away, trust your instincts about Ethan. My eyes went to my grandson, then to Emily, who was checking her makeup without a trace of sadness. Yes, I said slowly. I believe I understand. Michael told us to meet at his office the next day for the will. Emily jumped in quickly, saying she hoped to resolve everything soon, even mentioning taking Ethan on a healing trip. I felt a chill. Carrying Ethan to the car, I whispered, "We'll be okay. Somehow, we'll be okay." The next day, we sat in Michael's office. Emily began the meeting looking smug. But as he read the will, her smile faded. Daniel had left her the lake house, some investments, and a life insurance policy. Nearly $1 million, but not what she'd expected. The family home, both cars, and his personal account were left to me. Emily protested, claiming the house was marital property, but Michael calmly produced documents showing it was purchased before the marriage. Then came the real shock. Daniel had created a trust for Ethan's education, and I was named trustee. Emily's composure cracked for the first time. Her voice was sharp when she asked why Daniel hadn't told her. Michael explained he'd updated the will 3 months earlier, legally and with witnesses. I thought back to that time, the weekends Daniel had brought Ethan to stay with me. Now it all made sense. Emily turned to me, voice soft, eyes pleading. Eleanor, James would have wanted his family to stay in that house. You already have your own place. Surely you won't take Ethan's home away. The manipulation was obvious, framing me as the one to blame. I didn't rise to it. I need time to process, I said. As the meeting ended, Emily left with a stiff goodbye. Michael asked me to stay behind. Once the door closed, he handed me a sealed envelope in Daniel's handwriting. My hands shook as I held it. Read it when you're ready, he said gently. I slipped Daniel's letter into my purse, my heart pounding. In the lobby, I overheard Emily on the phone, her voice sharp with anger. The house, the cars, even Ethan's education fund, all left to her. Of course I'll fight it, David. I deserve more than scraps. I crept away unseen, my mind spinning. Daniel had clearly anticipated this very moment. Back home, I finally opened the envelope. His handwriting leapt off the page. Mom, if you're reading this, I'm gone. My marriage has been failing for a while, and I've learned things about Emily that make me fear for Ethan, and for you. I arranged everything to protect you both. Don't reveal what you know. Watch. Document. Michael has evidence and instructions. Use your judgment. I trust you. Protect my boy. Fresh tears blurred the words. Even in death, Daniel was guiding me. I now had a mission: safeguard Ethan and outwit Emily. 3 days after the funeral, Ethan looked at me over breakfast. Grandma, when is Dad coming back? My chest ached. Sweetheart, remember what we talked about? His body stopped working, but his spirit is always with you. He nodded sadly. I keep thinking he'll come make pancakes. I offered to take over pancake duty. They won't taste the same, he whispered, but I'd like that. I was staying at the house, my house now, though Emily didn't see it that way. When I returned from dropping Ethan at school, she was waiting in the kitchen, sleek in a black suit. Eleanor, we need to talk. I kept my demeanor polite, remembering Daniel's warning. Emily sighed dramatically. This house is filled with memories. It might be healthier for Ethan and me to make a fresh start downtown. Wonderful schools, cultural district, all walking distance. I offered her coffee, nodding as if surprised. But with the way James arranged things, I'll need your cooperation, she pressed. Her attorney, she claimed, advised me to transfer the house to her. I feigned consideration. Daniel changed his will just 3 months ago, specifically to set things up this way. A flash of irritation broke through her mask. He wasn't thinking clearly. He was overworked. Surely you don't want to take Ethan's home from him. The manipulation was precise. I kept my tone calm. I think we should wait before making big decisions. Relief flickered in her eyes. She believed she'd made progress. Then came the push. The condo won't be available long. It would be easier for Ethan if we settled quickly. I countered gently. Maybe we should ask him what he wants. He might find comfort here. Emily leaned in, her voice smooth. Children don't always know what's best. That's why adults decide. I thought of Daniel's letter. She'll try to manipulate you. You're probably right, I said lightly, watching her relax. Let me think a few days. She smiled, satisfied. Take the weekend. But Eleanor, I'm worried about finances. James handled everything. Now I'm finding credit card bills, the mortgage, she trailed off, fishing. I offered to review the accounts with her. She shut it down instantly. That's not necessary. It was clear, every word, every move was calculated. But Daniel had trusted me to play the long game. And I would. After Emily left, I replayed our conversation. She thought I was a passive, grieving woman who could be coaxed into handing over the house. For now, I needed her to keep believing that. I called Michael. I need to know exactly what Daniel found, and how we can build on it. This was going to be a long game. 1 week after the funeral, Ethan whispered as I tucked him in, "Mom says we're going to Miami with her friend Richard." "I don't want to go." He clutched his dinosaur. "I have a science project due Monday. Dad always helped with those." Mom said I can skip it, but Dad wouldn't want that. My heart ached. "You're right," I said softly. "Your dad believed in keeping promises. I'll talk to your mom." That night, I phoned Michael again. "Miami? With Richard?" His voice sharpened. "Eleanor, did you install the home security system?" I told him yes, cameras, alerts, all set up. "Good. I'll send you James's file tomorrow. Don't open it where anyone can see." The next morning, I received a thick envelope. Inside were text messages between Emily and Richard going back months. They revealed an affair, complaints about Daniel, and even plans to start over together. A line chilled me, "Need to get financials in better position first. Cayman property won't wait forever." There were also investigator photos of Emily and Richard at a hotel, receipts for gifts, and a note Daniel had written to Michael just weeks before his death. "I'm not sure what to do. Confronting her could put Ethan at risk. Protect him above all." He'd scheduled a meeting for Thursday. He died on Tuesday. Armed with this, I kept my tone light when Emily came for Ethan's weekend bag. "Lucas mentioned Miami," I said casually. She smiled tightly. "Just a quick distraction. I mentioned his science project." She brushed it off, saying grief excused deadlines. When I noted Richard's name, her eyes narrowed, then softened. "This is about mother-son bonding." I pressed further, pretending innocence. "Do you know Daniel's computer password?" Ethan wanted photos for a memory book. "I don't keep his passwords," she said dismissively, though I'd already found Daniel's notes in his desk. Then I asked about volunteering for Ethan's field trip. She shook her head. "Spa day. Mental health." After she left, I called Michael again. "She's taking Ethan to Miami with Richard." His reply was calm. "We'll document everything. Photos, her absence from school events, Ethan's reactions. Every piece matters." I hated thinking of Ethan's pain as evidence. But if I was going to protect him, I had to record every misstep Emily made. She thought she was performing grief. What she didn't know was that Daniel had already written her out of the script. Playing the part of the supportive mother-in-law, I kept documenting everything while Emily underestimated me. Even Ethan, without realizing it, gave me crucial insight through his innocent comments. James was gone, yet his presence guided me more strongly than anyone else. When Ethan returned from Miami, he was sunburned, exhausted, and withdrawn. Sophia, glued to her phone, brushed off his quiet misery as drama and bragged about the luxury resort. Upstairs, Ethan confided the truth. His mother and Richard left him with a hotel babysitter, sometimes overnight, and laughed when Richard said kids just mess things up. He whispered that Dad had always let him help steer their little boat. My chest tightened, but I stayed calm, comforting him while mentally noting every detail. Over the next 2 weeks, the pattern grew. Emily stayed out late, dumped Ethan on me more often, skipped his school conference, and even forgot his asthma medication during soccer practice. The security cameras I'd installed capture her bringing Richard home late at night, as well as coaching Ethan to lie about their outings. I recorded it all in the journal Michael had urged me to keep. Any single mistake could be excused, but patterns were undeniable. Then came the confrontation. One evening, Emily appeared at the house dressed for a date. "We need to discuss selling the house," she announced. I smiled politely. "Actually, I've been planning what to keep when I move in permanently." Her brows shot up. "Move in? I thought we agreed to sell." "I don't recall agreeing," I said mildly. "Lucas's therapist feels stability is important right now." Her smile froze. She tried to warn me about the financial burden, but I reminded her Daniel left the house free and clear. I saw the calculation flicker in her eyes. She was reassessing me. After she left, I helped Ethan rebuild his lost science project. As he carefully glued the planets, he asked quietly, "Grandma, are you going to live here now instead of Mom?" My heart twisted. "Why do you ask?" He shrugged. "Mom told someone you're trying to take the house from her. She said you were being selfish." I swallowed hard. "Sweetheart, your dad just wanted us to have safe places to live. Sometimes adults disagree about details." He looked up and said simply, "I want you to stay." Ethan's words echoed in my mind. "You help me with homework. You remember my medicine. You make real food instead of pizza." At 8 years old, he already saw the difference between performance and real care. Protecting him wasn't just honoring Daniel's wishes anymore, it was my mission. Nearly 4 weeks after the funeral, Emily casually announced over coffee, "I'm thinking of taking Ethan to my parents in Arizona." My pulse quickened. Arizona, during estate meetings Michael had just scheduled? I kept my tone light. "That's far. What about school?" She waved it off. "Children are resilient." Then, almost conspiratorial, she invited me to dinner. "I've come up with a solution that works for everyone." Suspicious but curious, I agreed. That night, she'd staged everything: upscale restaurant, designer dress, champagne toast to new beginnings. It was textbook manipulation, soften me with charm before delivering her pitch. She began carefully, describing James as overworked, medicated, perhaps not of sound mind when he updated his will. Her specialist attorney, she claimed, could contest it easily. "But litigation is ugly," she added smoothly. "Not what Lucas needs. I have a better idea." She leaned in. "You transfer the house and cars to me, as James's widow. In exchange, I'll guarantee you visitation. Holidays, maybe every other weekend." I nearly choked on my champagne. She was offering me permission to see my own grandson, as if his love were hers to barter. Out loud, I kept my tone neutral. "That's quite a proposal." She mistook my composure for hesitation. "It's generous. I value your relationship with Lucas. And frankly, I could use the help sometimes." There it was, not about Ethan's well-being, but childcare that freed her to pursue Richard. When I asked about Ethan's trust fund, irritation flashed before her mask returned. "That's too complicated. As his mother, I should have control." Finally, she pulled out a folded contract. "My attorney drafted this. Simple, clean. Everyone wins." She slid it across the table like a winning hand of cards. I studied the document, buying time. Every clause was designed to strip away Daniel's protections. "And what about Arizona?" I asked lightly. "Would visits continue if you moved?" Her smile turned regretful, the next piece of her plan about to unfold. Emily's Arizona trip wasn't just a vacation. Over dinner, she revealed it might be permanent. Richard had business opportunities there, private schools for Ethan, a fresh start. Conveniently far from me and anyone who remembered Daniel. Then came her real offer: if I signed over the house and assets, she'd allow me to see Ethan. Holidays, maybe weekends. I folded the contract, slid it into my purse, and said I'd have Michael review it. Her smile tightened. "No need to involve him. My attorney says this is standard." I reminded her that Daniel had taught me never to sign without review. She forced a polite smile, but her eyes hardened. "Eleanor, this really is best for everyone. Fighting me will only hurt Lucas." The threat lingered as she paid with what I suspected was Daniel's credit card. Driving home, my hands shook. She planned to erase Daniel from Ethan's life, and thought I'd hand her the tools. I called Michael. "She wants to move Ethan to Arizona permanently. And she gave me a written proposal." His voice sharpened. "Perfect. Bring it tomorrow. We're moving to the next phase." The next morning, Michael studied the document, marking sections in yellow. "This is essentially a confession. She's offering visitation only if you give her what's legally yours." "That's coercion. And this clause about Arizona?" "It proves premeditation, uprooting Ethan from his school, his counselor, his family. Combined with the evidence of neglect, this is powerful." I sat back, heart racing. "So, what now?" Michael closed the file. His expression was calm, deliberate. "Now we execute the contingency plan Daniel put in place." Michael opened a sealed envelope marked Emergency Protocol in Daniel's handwriting. My breath caught at the sight of my son's script. Inside were detailed instructions: what to do if Emily's behavior endangered Ethan or if she tried to separate him from me. The key, Michael explained, is a petition for emergency custody modification. Daniel wanted you to seek temporary guardianship if it came to this.
I froze. Custody?
You think a court would grant me that over his mother?
I'm 65.
Age isn't disqualifying, he said firmly. You've been deeply involved in Ethan's life. We're not accusing Emily of being unfit in the extreme sense. We're showing her choices are hurting Ethan during grief.
That matters to a judge.
He laid out the evidence: my journals documenting her absences, the home security footage, teachers' notes about missed conferences, Ethan's counselor describing regression, photos from Miami showing him left with hotel staff, and now Emily's written offer to trade my rights for assets. We need one more piece, Michael added. A neutral evaluation. I've arranged for a child psychologist to meet Ethan at school tomorrow. It's routine in these cases, nothing Emily would notice. Hearing how thoroughly Daniel had prepared, even planning for a psychologist, broke me.
How long had he known?
How much had he seen before deciding this might be necessary?
When will we file? I asked.
Within 48 hours of the report, if it supports us, Michael replied. His voice softened. Eleanor, are you ready? Emily will fight hard. She'll be angry, even vindictive. I thought of Ethan's sunburned shoulders, his frightened whispers about being left alone, the way he clutched his father's photo for comfort. I thought of Daniel, who had trusted me with his son.
I'm ready, I said. Michael nodded. Then keep playing your role. Don't let Emily suspect anything has changed.
Michael told me to stall if Emily pressed for an answer. Say you're still considering, ask questions about visitation.
I'll handle the petition.
As I left his office, my phone buzzed. A text from Emily. Need your answer by tomorrow. Arizona arrangements pending. Important opportunity for Ethan. I replied carefully, still reviewing. Let's discuss tomorrow evening. Her response came instantly. 7 p.m. at the house. Richard's attorney will be there. Not her own lawyer, not Daniel's, Richard's. Another detail for my notes. That afternoon, Ethan told me his mom forgot his lunch again, then scolded him for calling during her important meeting. His small shoulders slumped as if he'd learned to manage her moods instead of his own.
I wrote it all in my journal.
That evening, Michael called. The school psychologist met with Ethan. Preliminary findings are strong, high anxiety about Arizona, and clear attachment to you as his main support.
Is that enough? I asked, hope flickering. Combined with our evidence? Yes.
I'm filing the emergency petition tomorrow. The judge usually rules within 24 hours. I barely slept, torn between hope and dread. By morning, Michael's voice was steady on the phone. The petition is filed. Judge Carlton set a hearing for tomorrow at 9. Emily will be served this afternoon. My stomach twisted.
So soon.
Child welfare moves quickly, especially with flight risk. Arizona raised red flags. Eleanor, do not meet her tonight. Once she's served, all communication goes through attorneys. Stay in a hotel if you must.
She'll be volatile. What about Ethan?
My voice cracked.
Worry for my grandson drowned out everything else.
Michael assured me the petition required Ethan to remain at home with me until the hearing. Eleanor, this will get messy, he warned.
Are you prepared?
I thought of Daniel's letter, of Ethan's anxious eyes, and said firmly, I've never been more certain. That afternoon Sophia was served at her office. Hours later, my phone rang, her fury blazing through the speaker. You scheming witch. How dare you try to steal my son? My attorneys will destroy you. You'll never see Ethan again. I held the phone away, letting her rage burn itself out, then answered calmly. On the advice of counsel, I can't discuss this with you.
I'll see you at the hearing tomorrow.
She hissed one last threat before hanging up. When I set the phone down, exhaustion hit me. But Ethan was at the dining room table, bent over his math homework, blissfully unaware of the storm around him. Grandma, can we have spaghetti with your special sauce? He asked.
My heart softened. Of course. Want to help me make it?
As we cooked together, I studied his face, looking for signs of stress. Sophia had called earlier, claiming a work emergency, explaining he'd stay with me that night. Ethan accepted it easily, he was used to her excuses. Over dinner, he hesitated, then asked, "Mom sounded mad.
Is she mad at me?"
I leaned close. "No, sweetheart.
Adults get frustrated sometimes. It's not about you."
He seemed reassured but added softly, "She promised ice cream tomorrow."
"But she forgot last time." Another broken promise, one of many.
Each one another quiet reminder of why I was fighting, not just to honor Daniel's plan, but to protect a little boy already learning to expect disappointment. That night, after settling Ethan with extra stories, I called Michael for final preparation.
"How's he doing?" he asked.
"Managing," I said. Sophia called, but kept it calm.
"He doesn't suspect."
Michael's voice shifted to business. "The psychologist's report strongly supports us. Tomorrow is a preliminary hearing. You'll be asked about Ethan's well-being and your capacity to provide care. Sophia will respond.
Lucas won't appear. The judge excluded him."
Relief flooded me.
"What about Richard?" I asked.
"No legal standing," Michael said. "But he's bankrolling Sophia's attorney, Gerald Winters.
One of the most aggressive in the city.
Be ready, they'll try to paint you as a grief-crazed mother-in-law trying to steal a child. Just stay focused on Ethan."
Sleep was impossible.
I checked on Ethan again and again, listening to his steady breathing, aching to shield him from what tomorrow might bring. By morning, I dressed in a navy suit Michael had advised, conservative, stable, trustworthy.
Ethan noticed. "Why are you dressed up, Grandma?"
"I have an important meeting," I said, helping with his backpack. "Mrs. Wilson will take you to school today.
Mom, or I will pick you up later."
He shrugged, more worried about his favorite shirt than my formality. I hugged him tightly at the door, wishing I could freeze the moment. The courthouse loomed cold and formal, marble echoing underfoot. Michael met me at the entrance, composed but tense. "Sophia's already inside with Winters," he said quietly. I wasn't surprised Richard had secured top representation.
"And our chances?" I asked.
Michael squeezed my arm. "The judge is fair but cautious. The evidence is strong, but temporary custody is always extraordinary." I took a steadying breath. Extraordinary was exactly what Daniel had prepared for. Michael reminded me before we entered, this isn't about winning or losing.
It's about Ethan's support.
Inside, Emily sat beside a sharp-featured attorney, dressed in somber black, hair pulled back, a framed photo of Daniel and Ethan on the table. Her eyes met mine, cold with hatred before she quickly rearranged her face into a look of wounded grief. The performance had begun. Judge Reynolds entered promptly, stern and efficient. "This is an emergency hearing regarding temporary custody of Ethan Walker. I've reviewed the petition and supporting documents.
Let's proceed."
For the next hour, Michael laid out our case: Emily's neglect, her absences, the Miami trip, the psychologist's report, and the damning proposal where she tried to trade my visitation for property. Then her lawyer countered, painting me as an obsessive mother-in-law exploiting a grieving widow. He argued my detailed notes showed fixation, not concern, and claimed Emily was simply leaning on me for support while adjusting. Arizona, he said, was a fresh start. When it was my turn, I spoke of Ethan, not Emily, his anxiety, his slipping grades, the stability I tried to provide. "Your Honor," I said, meeting the judge's eyes, "I'm not asking to replace his mother. I'm asking for temporary measures so his needs come first in this vulnerable time. The evidence shows other priorities have taken precedence." The judge asked sharp questions, betraying no leanings. Then she announced she'd review the evidence and return in an hour. That wait in the marble hallway stretched like forever. Emily and her lawyer whispered at one end. Michael and I sat silently at the other. When the bailiff called us back, my legs felt heavy as stone. Judge Reynolds didn't waste a word. "Having reviewed all evidence and testimony, I find sufficient cause for emergency intervention in the current custody arrangement." Judge Reynolds' voice rang clear. "Temporary guardianship of Ethan Walker is granted to Mrs. Eleanor Walker for 60 days. During this time, court-appointed specialists will conduct a full family evaluation. Ms. Jensen will have supervised visitation 3 times weekly. Neither party may remove the child from this jurisdiction."
I exhaled shakily.
Across the room, Emily's mask cracked, fury twisting her face. She leaned toward her attorney, hissing accusations. The judge fixed her with a sharp look. Ms. Jensen, your reaction concerns me. I advise you to focus on demonstrating the parenting capacity your son needs. The gavel struck. Court adjourned. As we stepped into the hallway, Emily blocked my path, makeup streaked with tears.
This isn't over. You have no idea what's coming.
Michael stepped between us. All communication goes through counsel from now on.
He touched my shoulder.
Let's pick up Ethan, explain things gently with his counselor.
For today, he's safe.
6 weeks later, Ethan and I sat on the porch swing. His legs dangled as he stared at the driveway where his mother rarely appeared for her supervised visits.
Grandma, is Mom ever coming back?
I used the words the therapist suggested.
She's having a hard time.
She loves you, but adults struggle with big changes.
Ethan nodded thoughtfully.
Like when Dad died, and she started staying out late.
His perception startled me.
Children notice more than we think, I said softly, pulling him close.
He frowned.
I was scared when she talked about Arizona. I didn't want to leave my school, my friends, or you. My heart broke, but I hugged him tighter. You don't have to be scared anymore, sweetheart.
You're safe here.
Ethan's quiet confessions kept adding weight to my notes.
I didn't like Richard, he told me. He talks to me like I'm a baby, or like I'm not even there.
The court-appointed evaluator had been meeting weekly with Ethan, with Emily, and with me. The assessment was nearly complete, and the final custody hearing was set for next week. In the weeks since gaining temporary guardianship, life had been both hard and healing. At first Ethan was confused, but his counselor helped frame it as special time with Grandma while Mom works on grown-up problems. Routines, real meals, homework help, they had calmed his fears. Emily, meanwhile, grew more erratic. She spent early visits scrolling her phone or asking Ethan loaded questions like whether I was mean to him. Then she began canceling visits, later showing up with lavish gifts and empty promises. The worst was when she tried to bring Richard into a supervised session. When the monitor refused, she stormed out, leaving Ethan in tears. Since then, she hadn't come at all. Do you think you'll be ready to talk with the judge next week?
I asked Ethan gently.
His therapist had explained it wasn't about choosing sides, only sharing his feelings.
He nodded.
Miss Abernathy said I just have to tell the truth about what makes me feel safe and happy. My heart ached, but I told him, that's exactly right. The next morning, Michael called, his steady voice carrying urgency. Emily's lawyer filed a motion to dismiss the case. They want Ethan returned immediately, no restrictions.
I gripped the phone. On what grounds?
They claim the evidence was fabricated.
That you manipulated Ethan.
That Emily's parenting was just grief.
He paused.
Normally, I'd say we're safe. Our documentation is too strong, the evaluation too clear.
But there's a complication. My chest tightened. What kind of complication?
Richard Hale has connections with Judge Blackwell, the one assigned to this motion while Judge Reynolds is on medical leave.
The meaning was obvious. Money and influence might undo everything. What can we do? I whispered.
I'm filing counter motions now, Michael said.
Then he hesitated.
But Eleanor, there's something else you need to know.
Michael's voice was grim.
Our investigator confirms Emily and Richard placed deposits on property in the Cayman Islands. If she regains custody, even briefly, she could take Ethan somewhere U.S. custody orders won't reach.
The thought chilled me. Of course she would.
She'd never seen Ethan as a grieving child, only as baggage. Michael promised safeguards and pushed for an emergency hearing once Judge Reynolds returned.
Document everything, he said.
That evening, while Ethan worked on a school project about family traditions, my phone buzzed. A text from Emily. We need to talk privately. Riverside Park. Tomorrow, 2 p.m. alone, or the deal's off. I showed it to Michael, who warned against going. Classic end run around the system. Still, I agreed to meet her, with Michael nearby and my recorder running.
The park was quiet.
Emily sat on a bench, sunglasses on, posture stiff. Thanks for coming, she said flatly. I'm sure your attack dog lawyer told you not to. I'm here because anything that helps Ethan is worth exploring, I answered, keeping my tone neutral. She stared at the river, silent for a long beat. Then, I'm dropping the custody case. I blinked. What? I'm signing over full custody. No more court battles, no more visits. She slipped off her glasses, revealing tired eyes. Richard and I are moving to Grand Cayman next month. He secured a resort development. We'll be there at least 3 years. And Ethan? I asked, though I already knew. She shrugged. He needs stability. I can't give that while relocating and running a project. Her clinical tone left me momentarily speechless. Finally, I managed. So you're just walking away? I prefer to think of it as the mature choice, she said coolly. I'm putting Ethan's needs first, recognizing you're better suited right now. Right now, I echoed. For the foreseeable future, she corrected, as if that softened the blow. Emily's voice was almost casual. I'll send support, make video calls when I can. Maybe Ethan could visit on school breaks. She spoke as if she were stepping down from motherhood to distant relative, and my heart ached. Yet under the sadness came relief. Ethan would finally be spared the endless battles. What do you want from me? I asked. A clean break. No hearings, no investigations. Sign the agreement my lawyer drafts, and Ethan stays with you while I start fresh. And the house? Daniel's accounts. Keep them, she said with a dismissive wave. Richard's new project will make those look like pocket change. I just want this closed. I kept my expression calm, though inside I marveled. Daniel had foreseen this, transferring assets, documenting Emily's behavior, ensuring Ethan's trust. He knew this moment would come. A week later, I sat in Judge Reynolds' chambers as she reviewed the signed agreement. This is unusual, the judge said, studying the papers. Ms. Jensen surrenders all parental rights except limited visitation. And you're prepared to assume full guardianship at your age, Mrs. Walker. Without hesitation, I replied. Ethan needs stability, love, and a connection to his father. I can give him all 3. After a long pause, Judge Reynolds signed. Custody of Ethan Walker is granted to Eleanor Walker, with support payments and limited visitation as agreed. Outside the courthouse, I finally let the weight of it all sink in. I was now, in every sense, Ethan's parent. Daniel would be proud, Michael said quietly. He protected Ethan the only way he could, by entrusting him to you. 6 months later, on a crisp autumn afternoon, Ethan and I planted a memorial garden in the backyard. Daniel's favorite flowers around a small stone bench where we could sit and talk to Dad whenever Ethan wanted. Do you think Dad knew Mom would leave? Ethan asked suddenly as he pressed soil around a rose bush. His question, so sharp for his age, caught me off guard. I think your dad knew that sometimes adults choose what they want, not what children need, I told Ethan gently. He wanted to make sure you'd always have someone who put you first. Ethan nodded, satisfied. I miss Dad every day, he said softly, but I don't miss how things were after he died, when Mom was always angry or gone. I hugged him close. Your dad made sure you'd be cared for. And that's exactly what I'll do, for as long as you need me. That night, after Ethan fell asleep, I opened the small box Michael had delivered after custody was finalized. Inside was one last letter from Daniel, marked when it's resolved. Mom, if you're reading this, you did what I couldn't. You protected Ethan from a situation I saw unraveling but couldn't stop. I watched Emily's priorities shift, her resentment grow, her absences lengthen. When I discovered her relationship with Richard, I knew Ethan would suffer. I'm sorry for the burden, asking you to parent again at your age. But I knew you'd do it without hesitation. Tell Ethan my stories, even my mistakes, and how I tried to fix them. Remind him that we do the best we can with the time we're given. I love you both more than words can say. Daniel. I pressed the letter to my heart, tears flowing. The road had been brutal. Grief, courtroom battles, Emily's abandonment. Yet looking around at Ethan's artwork taped to the fridge, soccer cleats by the door, and homework spread across the table, I knew Daniel had been right to trust me. Some might call it justice that Emily chose freedom over motherhood. I chose to see it as redemption, the chance to honor my son by raising his child with the love and stability he cherished. Despite everything, Love had the final word. 3 years later, on a sunny afternoon, Ethan ran in from school, eyes bright. "Grandma, I got the lead in the play." And in that moment, I knew, we were not just surviving. We were thriving. Ethan burst through the door, his 11-year-old energy filling the house. He dropped his backpack and thrust a script into my hands. 3 years had changed the anxious boy into a confident middle schooler whose smile finally reached his eyes. "It's Our Town by Thornton Wilder," he said proudly. "I got George Gibbs." "That's wonderful," I told him. "Your dad played the same role when he was in 8th grade. I still have the program in the attic. He'd be so proud to see you following in his footsteps." Ethan grinned, then grew thoughtful. "Should we tell Mom about the play?" The question didn't surprise me. Emily had faded from his life after moving to the Cayman Islands, first missing calls, then birthdays, until only the support checks remained. Through Michael, we heard she'd remarried Richard and was now building resorts in Thailand. "It's up to you," I said carefully. He considered, then shook his head. "She didn't answer when I wrote about winning the science fair. I think just you, the Wilsons, and Uncle Michael are enough audience for me." As he bounded upstairs, I lingered in the kitchen, adjusting the collage of photos on the fridge. Karate tournaments, science projects, birthday laughter. A timeline of healing. The road hadn't been easy. That first year brought nightmares, angry outbursts, and painful questions. Why doesn't Mom want to talk to me? Did I do something wrong? Would she have stayed if Dad were alive? With the help of a gifted child psychologist, we navigated those waters. I learned to validate Ethan's feelings without blaming Emily, to help him see her choices reflected her limits, not his worth. 3 years later, Ethan had truly found his footing. His grades were strong, his circle of friends steady, and his resilience remarkable for a boy who had faced so much loss. The house that was once Daniel's had become ours, filled with art projects, gardening tools, and photos of trips and holidays that told the story of our new life together. At 68, I discovered unexpected vitality in this second round of parenting. Ethan's energy kept me active, and his needs gave me purpose. I'd even started seeing a kind widower from community theater, nothing serious, but a reminder that life still held surprises. A text came from Michael. "College fund restructuring approved. Ethan's future is secure." Daniel's foresight had once again protected his son, ensuring his education would be covered no matter what. As I stirred dinner, I thought about the strange path that brought us here. The midnight call, Emily's unraveling, the courtroom battles, and finally the stability we'd built. The grief hadn't vanished, but it had softened into a life filled with community and joy. The doorbell rang. It was Mrs. Parker with her usual smile and extra lasagna. She asked if Ethan was still coming to help Bill with the birdhouse project. "He wouldn't miss it," I said, inviting them in. Their voices filled the kitchen with warmth, part of the support network that had become family. Later, after Ethan was asleep, I opened the memory book we'd made during that first hard year. Photos of Daniel, pages in Ethan's early handwriting, cards from friends who carried us through. On the last page was a line from Daniel's final letter. "Tell him stories about me, not just the good ones, but the real ones, about my mistakes and how I tried to fix them." I had kept that promise. Ethan didn't just know his father's strengths, he knew his humanity. And in that truth, in the love that survived everything, we had built a life worth cherishing. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe, and if you feel like it, share your story in the comments.